Hi, we're Samah and Rainy, and this is our last video in the tea introduction series. We're going to be talking about the sixth major tea type, Pu-Erh tea.
Pu-Erh tea is from Yunnan province in China, and is a special type of fermented tea. So the cultivar of Pu-Erh tea in Chinese is known as Yunnan 大叶种, meaning Yunnan big leaf, indicating that Pu-Erh tea comes from big tea trees rather than small bushes. And it's a fermented tea, and it can also be aged for a really long time. The correct pronunciation of this tea is Pu-Erh, not Pu-Erh tea. And something else that's important to know is that there's another name of this tea in China, and the literal translation of that name is actually dark tea. There are also two types of Pu-Erh teas, the raw, the shen, or we say the raw, and shu, or ripe. And just to make it easier for everybody, we're going to use English terms throughout the entire video. And the major differences that lies between the raw ones and the ripe ones is during processing. And with that being said, processing for Pu-Erh tea can be somewhat complicated, not necessarily as complicated as oolong teas, but just kind of different. So bear with us, here it comes. By now, you should be familiar with some of the processing terms that we have been using, throughout other videos as well. So we pluck the leaves, and then we wither them, kill grain, then we roll them, and then we dry them. So when it comes to Pu-Erh tea, it's always better if you do the outdoor sun drying. And then at this point, the Pu-Erh teas are known as Maocha. Okay, so Maocha is a term that can be used also for other type of teas. But in Pu-Erh tea's case specifically, it means that the teas have gone through all the initial processing stages except for fermentation.
And when it comes to ripe Pu-Erh, which is the more complicated processing of the two between ripe and raw, what happens is that the farmers are going to place a lot of maocha together, and they're going to sprinkle them evenly with water and put a thin fabric over it, and this begins the fermentation process. This process, or this stage, is called wet piling, or
卧堆.
And basically, the tea leaves are left in a temperature and humidity level controlled environment. And the farmers do have to reshuffle the teas multiple times throughout the process when the temperature rises too high to prevent the tea leaves from burning. But the completion of this stage really depends on the farmer's experience. So some farmers take about 4 to 6 weeks, others will take 12 to 14 weeks. And once they complete this stage, they put all the tea leaves to air dry indoors, and we'll sort through the tea leaves to separate any teas that got stuck together during the wet piling process. They'll then sort through the tea leaves to figure out which one's higher quality and not. And after that, if they're a responsible farmer, they'll put the tea leaves through a bacteria killing process. Hope they are. And lastly, they either leave the tea as it is to be sold, or they will steam it and shape it into a cake or a brick or any other interesting shape. And then for raw Pu-Erh, it's a lot more straightforward. The maocha does not go through the wet piling process. It's left as it is to age naturally in its environment. And it can also be steamed to be put into a cake shape or brick shape or any other shape. And yeah, that's the key difference between ripe and raw Pu-Erh's processing. And because of raw Pu-Erh's, I guess, simpler processing, that's what leaves raw Pu-Erh looking a lot more green than ripe Pu-Erh. And it also means that it ages a lot slower than ripe Pu-Erh.
That was a really good explanation. You one go. Impressive. Well done, Samah. So, and from there, basically, at this point, ripe Pu-Erh tea and raw Pu-Erh teas are both have gone through, the production processing, and they can be aged from here. And what that means is that the flavors and the fragrances are going to enhance as well as change as time passes by. However, something that's important to keep in mind is matcha is probably the most essential element when it comes to the aging, processing, because a lot of people tend to believe that the older the Pu-Erh tea, the better the quality, which is not entirely wrong. However, if the matcha's quality is not great to begin with, regardless how long the time has passed by, the Pu-Erh tea's quality is not going to become anything very good, unfortunately. Yeah.
So Pu-Erh has a long and complicated history, but we'll try to simplify it for you. It was originated from Yunnan, China, but it didn't become common in China until about 680 years ago, which is quite slow in comparison to other tea types. This is because Yunnan is bordered with Tibet and hence much further away from the major cities in China. There were and still are a lot of minority tribes that live in Yunnan that are the major producers of Pu-Erh tea. And in the past, China exported its tea out of Yunnan to Tibet, Nepal, India, and other South Asian and Southeast Asian countries. This is what established the ancient tea road, the tea horse road.
Ancient tea horse road, 茶瓦古道. Yeah.
Okay, and this basically helped China establish two major trade routes towards the west. A fun fact, two fun facts. First fun fact, in Tibet at the time when this tea was being exported, the diet mainly consisted of protein like meats and dairy, and the tea was basically one of the few things that introduced probiotics into the diet, and hence there was a lot of reliance on the Pu-Erh tea to help digest, since Pu-Erh is fermented and hence has probiotics. Anyway, there is a saying in Tibet that says, I would rather go 3 days without salt or grain, but I would never go a day without tea. Cute. I feel you. And then the other fun fact is the type of Pu-Erh tea that was being traded is raw Pu-Erh. Mm-hmm. Ripe Pu-Erh was, and guess, surprise, an accidental.
Surprise.
Yeah. What is it?
Well, I mean, during the journey, they go through some really wet, hot zones because of temperature changes, or maybe because of, the rain, the weather.
And humidity, because those areas are pretty humid. Yeah.
Exactly.
So the raw Pu-Erh turned ripe.
By accident.
This is super simplification, but then they were like, oh wow, Pu-Erh can be ripe.
Tastes good.
And now, today in China, it's very commonly drunk. And in Yunnan, you can actually still come across really old Pu-Erh trees that are a few hundred years old that are still producing teas. It's pretty cool.
There are hundreds of different types of Pu-Erh tea, and that's because there are, strictly speaking, there are really that many villages and mountains, like small areas that are scattered out in different regions in Yunnan province that produce this tea. So again, in order to simplify this really big, vast, complicated world of Pu-Erh, we're going to quickly talk about 4 major production areas in Yunnan province so that you have a general idea of what some of the general characteristics of teas are like from these 4 regions. So first of all, let's go to Xishuangbanna, which is in the southern area of Yunnan. So Xishuangbanna is bordered with Laos and Myanmar, and it also has the most minority tribal people that live there. There are there are 2 main regions in Xishuangbanna that produce Pu-Erh tea. To the west, we have Monghai. Pu-Erh teas from Monghai are generally known for having kind of like woody, earthy, and sometimes even a bit of smoky characteristics. Versus then we go to the east side. East side is called Yiwu, and Yiwu teas are more likely to be smooth, gentle, and kind of sweet. So in the world of Pu-Erh tea in China, we have a saying which is Monghai the king and Yiwu the queen. Thank you. After that, let's just go up north about an hour from Xishuangbanna. Then we get to Linchang. So teas from Linchang are generally known for having a little bit of astringency. Personally, I don't really like that, but maybe some people do. I'm not sure. Then just go like even further north a little bit, like about another hour away. Then we have Pu-Erh city. So yeah, there's an actual city in Yunnan that is called Pu-Erh. And teas from this region are generally known for having, are more mild and light. So those are the 4 major areas in Yunnan to produce Pu-Erh tea, and that should get you started and get into this world.
So when brewing ripe Pu-Erh, you can brew it at boiling point, and typically people will give it 1 to 2 rinses to open up the tea leaves. Now, if you're brewing raw Pu-Erh, you can rinse it at with boiling water, but you typically want to steep it at lower than boiling temperature, so anywhere from 195 to 205 degrees Fahrenheit. This is because despite being aged, raw Pu-Erh tea leaves are a lot more green and they are a lot more temperature sensitive. And then the liquor of ripe Pu-Erh can be quite dark. It can look almost black to brown or reddish brown. And raw Pu-Erh can look anywhere from yellow to amber, and everything in between. Here's a comparison of a 2009 raw Pu-Erh to a 2017 ripe Pu-Erh.
Pu-Erh teas has a wide spectrum of flavors because there's so many different kinds and types of them. But generally speaking, ripe Pu-Erh teas can be more earthy, woody, and kind of smoky sometimes, and has a certain level of viscosity on your palate. And of course, it's sweet and it's very smooth. Versus raw Pu-Erh tea, on the other hand, are more likely to be floral, sometimes vegetal, and plum, so kind of fruity, and sometimes also buttery, and but also very sweet. Like the ending notes should be pretty sweet. Yeah.
So the benefits of Pu-Erh tea are plentiful. to name just a few, it helps with digestion. It's a fermented tea, so it's going to have a lot of probiotics, which are really good for your gut health. It also helps lower cholesterol, and it's pretty high in antioxidants, surprise, and vitamin C, so it's good for immunity as well.
So this concludes the ending of our intro tea series, and we would love to stay connected with you on various types of social media platform, whether it's on YouTube or on Instagram. If you have questions or anything, right? Just as always, leave us a comment or maybe send us an email. And and let's stay in touch, and also we'll update you for future videos and what we're gonna do. So, but for now, happy holidays and happy new year. We'll see you next year. In the meantime, as usual,
Commit and like, and happy steeping.
Happy steeping. Always, no, she does this every time when she finishes filming.
Poopy away.
I think this part. Are you go? It is real.